For 5 years, I worked double shifts to pay for his medical degree. And the day he finally graduated, he rewarded me by divorcing me. "You embarrass me," he said. "Your simplicity, it's beneath me now." He thought he was discarding some plain lunch lady type of woman. He had no idea he was declaring war on the secret owner of the largest commercial real estate empire in the city. Before I tell you how I threw him out of the very clinic he dreamed of owning, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe, because you're about to see what happens when a man bites the hand that fed him. The crystal chandeliers of the Golden Oak Country Club were blinding. I pushed through the double doors, my arms trembling under the weight of the 5-tier vanilla bean cake I had spent 48 straight hours baking and decorating. Sweat slid down my spine, soaking the white chef's coat dusted with flour and sugar. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Around me, lawyers in custom tuxedos sipped champagne, laughing with their jeweled wives. I felt like a stain on silk. And he stood at the center of the room. Marcus is dazzling in the cream velvet jacket I bought him using money from my last 3 catering contracts. I moved toward him, forcing a smile. I just wanted him to see the cake. I wanted him to taste it, to tell me the sleepless nights were worth something. Marcus turned. His smile died instantly. Annoyance. Disgust. A look I had come to know too well. He didn't come to help me. Instead, he rushed forward, hand raised, not to greet me, but to stop me. He shoved my arm. The cake stand wobbled dangerously. The top tier swayed. My heart stopped. I lunged and barely steadied it. "What is wrong with you, Marcus?" I whispered. "You nearly bumped into Tiffany," he hissed. "Do you know how much that silk cost?" I blinked through the sting of sweat. "I just wanted to bring the cake for the toast." "I made it exactly how you," he cut me off with a flick of his hand. "Look at you, Nia. You look like you crawled out of a grease trap. You smell like fryer oil and desperation. This is a gathering of professionals, doctors, and you show up looking like the help." Tiffany stepped closer, pinching her nose delicately. "Oh Marcus, don't be too harsh. It's not her fault. Some people are just made for labor. She probably doesn't know kitchen smells cling to cheap fabric. Here, let me call a server to take that heavy thing before she drops it on someone who actually matters." Her sweetness was faker than the diamonds on her dress. It was the kind of tone people use on a dog right before kicking it. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to defend me. To tell his sister-in-law I was his wife. That I paid his tuition. That I paid for this entire event. Instead, he gave me a cold, surgical stare. "Do what she says. Give the cake to a server and go hide in the kitchen until you can make yourself presentable." Like I was nothing but a clumsy maid. I stood there, the cake trembling in my hands, my heart quietly shattering beneath the roar of the party. He was ashamed of me. After 5 years of double shifts, credit card debt, and bills in my name, he was ashamed of the very work that earned him the degree he now flaunted. A passing server paused, pity in his eyes. I handed him the cake. And in that moment, something in me went cold. Something dangerous. The same simple woman Marcus humiliated was about to become the monster he should have never provoked. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just wiped a smear of frosting from my cheek and backed into the shadows, watching my husband shine beneath chandeliers paid for with my overtime hours. I tried to slip into the dim service hallway to hide my burning face, but a hand clamped around my arm like a steel trap. Beatrice. My mother-in-law. She was dressed in a gold sequin gown and a ridiculous church hat that belonged in the front pew on Sunday morning, not at a formal gala. To the rest of Atlanta, she was a pillar of the community, the church matriarch who led the choir and organized food drives. To me, she was the woman who'd spent 5 years reminding me that I was merely the soil her son had been planted in, never the son that helped him grow. She yanked me into a narrow alcove near the restrooms, out of sight from the guests but with a perfect view of the ballroom. Her grip hurt, but her smile stayed fixed for anyone who might be watching. "Fix your face, Nia," she hissed, low, sharp, dangerous. "You're walking around like a kicked dog, and it embarrasses my son." This is his night of triumph. Don't you dare ruin it with your pity party. I tried to pull my arm back, but she held tight. I'm tired, Beatrice. I cooked for 2 days straight. I paid for this venue because Marcus said he had to have golden oak. I just wanted him to be happy. Beatrice released a short, cutting laugh, too sharp to be anything close to amusement. Happy? You think a man like Marcus finds happiness with a wife who smells like fryer oil? Look out there, Nia. Just look. She pointed a manicured finger toward the center of the room. Marcus stood beside Dr. Chloe, a woman I only knew through the glowing stories Marcus told about his brilliant study partner. Chloe shimmered in an emerald gown, her hair cascading down her back in soft, perfect waves. She held her champagne flute with the kind of effortless grace I could never imitate. She was laughing at something the head of surgery said. She looked like she belonged there. Like she owned the room. That, Beatrice whispered, her breath warm and minty against my ear, is what a doctor needs. A woman with substance. A woman with lineage. Chloe comes from a family of surgeons. She brings dignity into a room. You bring the scent of fried chicken and labor. Her words stabbed deep, but I forced myself to stand straighter. I paid his tuition, Beatrice. Every cent. I paid for his books, his lab fees, the apartment where he studied. Chloe didn't do that. I did. Beatrice released my arm with a shove of pure disgust. Shut your mouth, girl. Don't you dare speak of money as if it buys you class. That was your duty. God blessed you with the opportunity to serve a man with a divine calling. It was your privilege to support him while he ascended. She stepped closer, eyes gleaming with holy arrogance. Don't act like he owes you anything. You were investing in glory you could never reach on your own. You should be on your knees thanking Jesus that Marcus allowed your name to be attached to his for as long as he did. He needed a mule to haul his supplies up the mountain, Beatrice said coolly. But now he's reached the summit. And we do not bring the mule into the palace. She smoothed the front of her sequined gown, her face sliding back into that serene, church lady mask she wore for the public. Now go out the back door, she ordered. We have distinguished guests to entertain, and you look like janitorial staff. Don't make me call security to remove you. Marcus's heart would break seeing you humiliate yourself any further. With that, she turned and swept back into the ballroom, greeting the mayor with a warm, genteel hug, as if she hadn't just gutted me alive in the hallway. I looked toward Marcus and Chloe again. He was leaning close, whispering something in her ear. Something that made her giggle softly. He wasn't looking for me. He wasn't checking if I was okay. I was the mule. And my work was finished. The room fell silent as the event host tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man of the evening. Dr. Marcus Vance. The applause rolled through the ballroom like a physical force, rattling through my bones. I stood near the swinging kitchen door, clutching an empty champagne tray so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was the moment. This was when he would acknowledge the sacrifice. He had to. Marcus strode onto the stage like a king ascending his throne. The spotlight gleamed on the diamond stud in his ear and the polished perfection of his smile. He approached the podium with the easy confidence he used to charm hospital directors. First, I must honor God, he began, voice smooth and practiced. Without him, I am nothing. Then, and to my mother. Beatrice, please stand. Beatrice rose from table 1, bathed in applause, waving like royalty. You prayed me through this, Marcus continued. You kept me grounded. You are the pillar of this family. I held my breath. I was the one who paid the tuition. I was the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. editing his papers. I was the one who worked double shifts in catering so he could focus on residency. Surely, surely, he would say my name. This journey wasn't easy, Marcus said, face turning solemn. It demanded sleepless nights. Financial sacrifices. A vision beyond ordinary limits. And I did not walk this path alone. There it was. My heart slammed against my ribs. I want to invite someone very special to the stage, he said, smiling. Someone who understands the unique pressure of being a surgeon. Someone whose intellect challenges me every day. Someone who represents the very best of black excellence. Dr. Chloe, please join me. The air left my lungs. The floor all but disappeared beneath my feet. Dr. Chloe rose from the table beside Beatrice. Gliding toward the stage, her emerald silk gown flowing like liquid light. She placed her hand in Marcus's, and he drew her up beside him. Together, they looked flawless. Two doctors. Two pedigrees. A matching set. Marcus didn't have to say the next words aloud. His gesture said everything. This is my future. This is the woman worthy of the mountain's peak. It's rare, Marcus continued from the stage, to find a partner who reflects your own brilliance back at you. Chloe, you are a woman of substance. A woman of class. The only woman who truly understands what it takes to operate at this level. Thank you for being my equal. The room erupted. Cheering. Applause. Camera flashes sparking like fireworks, capturing the newly anointed golden couple. Marcus leaned in and kissed Chloe's cheek, slowly, deliberately, long enough to make a public declaration. He hadn't just forgotten me. He had erased me. 5 years of labor. 5 years of double shifts. 5 years of carrying him on my back. All of it used to build a pedestal for another woman. I stood in the shadows, the smell of dish soap clinging to my skin, watching my husband hold hands with the woman he intended to replace me with. He called her class. The implication cut clean through me. I was help. I was the stepping stone. The fuel burned up so the rocket could reach orbit. No one looked at me. No one remembered I existed. I was utterly alone in a room full of people drinking champagne I had paid for. The heavy oak door of the VIP suite slammed shut behind me, choking off the music and laughter from the ballroom. Silence rushed in thick, suffocating. I stood near a leather armchair, hands still trembling from the weight of the cake and the humiliation on stage. Marcus entered a moment later, moving with the calm arrogance of a man who believed the night belonged to him. I searched his face for a crack. A hint. A sign that this had all just been a performance. Maybe, privately, he would drop the ego. Maybe he would hug me and say thank you for the $200,000 in tuition. Maybe he would acknowledge that the only reason he was standing here in a custom tuxedo instead of a fast food uniform was me. Marcus walked to a mahogany table and picked up a thick envelope. He didn't look at me. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his silk bow tie. I figured you'd want this, he said casually. He tossed the envelope onto the coffee table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped at my feet. My stomach tightened. I bent down, opened it, divorce papers stared back at me in bold black letters. My breath stopped. I looked up at him, stunned. Marcus, what is this? Is this a joke? It's not a joke, Nia, he finally said, turning to face me. His eyes were cold, stripped of anything resembling love. It's a correction. A necessary adjustment to the trajectory of my life. He gestured at me with a dismissive flick of his hand. Look at yourself. Really look. You are simple. Your simplicity embarrasses me. I stepped back as if he'd slapped me. Simple? My voice cracked. Marcus, I built a business to pay your bills. I worked 18-hour days so you could study, and that's exactly the problem. He cut me off with that smooth, condescending tone. You're a worker. A grinder. You smell like labor. He straightened his cuffs. I'm a surgeon now, Nia. I operate in elite spaces. I need a wife who can host galas, not someone who worries about food costs and delivery schedules. He took a slow sip of the expensive scotch, ironically, the exact bottle I'd bought him as a celebration gift. You were useful when I was a student, he said. You were fuel. But the rocket has launched. We don't take the fuel tank into orbit. We discard it. The words nearly knocked the breath out of me. Then, with casual cruelty, he added, Chloe and I have been together for a year. Actually, since my 3rd year of residency. The room tilted. A year. While I was catering weddings to pay for his board exams, he was sleeping with a colleague. While I was napping in the back of my delivery van to save on rent, he was building a future with another woman. She fits the brand, he said matter-of-factly, setting down his glass. Her father is chief of staff. Her mother sits on the hospital board. When I walk into a room with Chloe, doors open. When I walk in with you, people ask if we're lost. Then he delivered the final blow, you're not worthy of me anymore. You're an anchor, and I was born to fly. He pointed at the papers. So sign. Take the apartment. It's a dump, but it suits you. And let me become the man destiny intended. He looked at me with real pity, the kind of pity that says my heartbreak was just another mess he was too important to clean up. He expected tears. He expected begging. He expected me to cling to the hem of his expensive jacket like a desperate wife who didn't know how to let go. He had rehearsed this moment in his head 1,000 times, painting himself as a tragic hero finally escaping a burden. He was so confident he even pushed the pen toward me like he was doing me a favor. I looked down at the papers. The legal language was sharp, cold, merciless. It wasn't the end of a marriage, it was the dissolution of a partnership I had fully funded. Marcus stood there in the suit I bought, drinking the scotch I paid for, celebrating the degree I sacrificed my youth to earn for him. But the grief I expected to feel? It evaporated. What came instead was a sudden, chilling clarity, the kind you feel when a fever finally breaks. I took the pen. Marcus's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, but I saw it. He had prepared arguments for my desperation, but he had no defense against my silence. I bent down and signed my name. Nia Vance. The letters were dark and steady. No trembling. No hesitation. I signed away 5 years of sacrifice the same way I sign for delivered packages. Marcus blinked at the signature, then up at me, confusion dulling the shine of his arrogance. You're not going to fight for us? The question slipped out before he could stop it. His ego stung because I let him go too easily. There is no us, Marcus. My voice was calm. There's just you, and the ladder you climbed using me. I'm done. I looked down at my hand. The ring, ye cheap, thin, scratched, had cost $50 at a pawn shop because Marcus needed our remaining savings for textbooks. Now he wore diamonds in his ears and a Rolex on his wrist, while I still carried the imprint of the poverty we started in. It wasn't a symbol of love. It was a shackle. I slid the ring off. It felt weightless, meaningless. I held it up under the crystal chandelier. Marcus watched, eyes narrowing, sensing danger too late. Then I lifted the ring over his vintage Cabernet Sauvignon, the wine I chose, I bought, and let go. The ring dropped into the glass with a clean, sharp clink. Red wine splashed upward, staining the pristine white bib of his tuxedo. The blotch spread like a bullet wound across the fabric he worshipped. Marcus stumbled back, gasping. You ruined my shirt. This is custom silk. I looked him dead in the eyes. You're right, Marcus. I'm not good enough for you. I stepped closer. I'm too expensive for the price you're willing to pay. I smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. You want a trophy wife to put on a shelf. But I'm not a trophy. I'm an empire. You just don't know it yet. But you will. I turned and walked away. My non-slip kitchen shoes squeaked softly on the marble floors, but I didn't care. I walked past the ballroom, past Dr. Chloe waiting to enjoy the life she stole, and stepped out of the Golden Oak Country Club into the wet Atlanta night. I left Marcus with his stained silk, his ruined moment, and the cheap ring sinking in his expensive wine. I had no husband. No home to return to. But for the first time in 5 years, I was free. And he had no idea that his tuition check was the last thing he would ever get from me. The conference room at Sterling and Associates smelled like lemon polish and quiet threats. I sat on one side of the glass table, hands folded in my lap. Across from me were Marcus and his attorney, a man named Julian, wearing a suit that cost more than my entire pantry. Marcus refused to look at me. He was too busy checking his reflection in the window, adjusting his cuffs like he was preparing for a photo shoot instead of a divorce settlement. Julian slid a thick stack of papers across the glass. The sound was like a blade being sharpened. "We've prepared a preliminary breakdown of assets and liabilities," Julian said, his voice smooth and oily. "As you know, Georgia is an equitable distribution state. That means all marital assets and debts must be divided." I pulled the papers toward me. My eyes scanned the columns. No assets listed under Marcus's name. No savings. No investments. Just debt. A long, ugly list of it. Credit card balances totaling $40,000. I didn't even know he'd leased a luxury sedan. Personal loans taken out in the last 6 months. "You want to split the debt?" I asked, looking up. "You want me to pay half of the credit cards you used to buy designer clothes and dinners with Chloe?" "That's marital debt, Nia," Marcus said, finally turning toward me. His tone was bored. "We got married in debt. So it's our debt. You benefited from my lifestyle." "Benefited," I repeated, laughing dryly. "I was working in a kitchen while you lived like a king. I didn't see a single dollar from this lifestyle." "That's irrelevant," Julian cut in. "The law is the law. You will assume 50% of the outstanding debt. In return, Marcus is willing to waive claims to future spousal support, given your current income disparity." I stared at them. He was a surgeon. I ran a catering business. The income disparity favored him, or at least it should have. But on paper, he was drowning in debt, and I looked stable simply because I paid the bills I owed. Marcus leaned forward, lips curving into a smile, the kind a wolf gives a sheep before it bites. "One more thing," he said. "The truck. My delivery truck. A Ford Transit. I had saved and scraped for years to buy one with a commercial oven built into the back. It was the heart of my business, the reason I could deliver 300 meals a day." "What about it?" I asked, my voice low. "It's marital property," Marcus said. "Purchased 2 years ago. Joint funds. I want it." "You can't be serious. You have a luxury sedan. You can't cook. What would you even do with a food truck?" "It's not for me," Marcus said, examining his nails. "It's for Tiffany." "Tiffany." "His sister. She's starting a mobile dog grooming business," he continued. "The truck would be perfect for hauling her equipment and larger breeds. She needs the space." The air left the room. He wanted to take the vehicle I had used to feed thousands, the truck that paid for his medical school applications, and hand it to his sister to cart around wet dogs. It wasn't just greed. It was a calculated humiliation, a deliberate strike meant to gut my independence. The truck was my livelihood, and he wanted to turn it into a dog crate. "That truck is how I make money, Marcus," I said. "You're trying to steal my income." "It's marital property," Julian interrupted again. "Marcus is entitled to his share. To keep it, you'll need to buy him out, cash value plus interest, or you can surrender the keys today and we'll deduct the amount from your portion of the debt." I looked at Marcus. He was enjoying this. He wanted to watch me break. He wanted me to beg for the tools of my own trade. He wanted to turn my empire into a kennel. The pettiness was breathtaking. He didn't need the truck. He just needed me not to have it. The heavy mahogany door of the conference room opened, and my attorney, David Caldwell, walked in. He carried in a stack of documents as thick as a phone book. When it hit the glass conference table, the sound cracked like a judge's gavel. Marcus flinched, but quickly slipped back into indifference. David didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table, commanding the room with the presence of a man who knew exactly where the bodies were buried. "Gentlemen." David's baritone was steady. "Before we discuss stripping my client's business assets to cover pet transport fees, let's settle the outstanding matter of capital contributions." Marcus frowned at him, then at me. Capital what? We don't have assets. David opened the binder. It was the paper trail of my blood and sweat, page after page of bank transfers. Canceled checks sent to the Georgia Medical College. Receipts for textbooks that cost more than my monthly rent. Invoices for the prerequisite courses Marcus insisted he needed. The inspection fees for the high-rise apartment he demanded because the dorms were too loud. $212,000.45, David announced, tapping the bold number at the bottom of the spreadsheet. This is the direct financial investment Mrs. Vance made in your education and career, Dr. Vance. If you want an equitable division of marital assets, we must first settle repayment. You're walking away with a medical degree. She's walking away with the debt. He paused. That isn't fair. I studied Marcus. I wanted to watch him squirm. I wanted proof that he couldn't just use people and discard them without a bill coming due. He looked at the spreadsheet for a long moment, eyes widening, before arrogance washed back over him like a tide. He picked up a copy of a tuition check, holding it to the light as if checking whether it was counterfeit. This is adorable, Marcus said with a smirk. He let the paper fall back onto the table. Seriously, Nia, you kept receipts? That is pathetically small. It's proof of payment, David countered. Marcus laughed. A dry, humorless sound that raised goosebumps on my arms. He looked to his attorney, Julian, then back at me. Let me explain something about the law to you, since you're just a chef and clearly don't understand how any of this works. He leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. In the state of Georgia, unless there's a signed written promissory note executed at the time the money changes hands, transfers between spouses are considered gifts. He tilted his head. Did I sign a contract for a loan, Nia? Did I sign a document promising to repay you with interest? Or did you hand over that money freely because you were trying to hold on to a man who was obviously out of your league? Heat drained from my face. He was weaponizing my love against me, turning my sacrifice into a pathetic act of desperation. It was an investment in our future, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Bad investment, Marcus shot back with a shrug. Joint ventures fail every day. You bet on a racehorse running too fast for you to ride. That money is gone, Nia. It was a gift given to ensure I stuck around while I became a doctor. And now that I am one, you want a refund because you can't handle the upgrade. He stood, smoothing his jacket. Go ahead and sue me. Spend another $50,000 in legal fees trying to reclaim a gift. The court will laugh you out of the room. You have no paperwork for a loan. Just the sob story of a woman who tried to buy a future she couldn't afford. He pointed to the documents. Now sign the papers, or I'm taking the truck and everything inside it. The commercial kitchen smelled of rosemary and roasted garlic, a sanctuary I had built with my own hands. I had been preparing 300 braised short ribs for a corporate lunch, my knife moving rhythmically across the board. It was the only time my mind felt still. Then the back door burst open. The sudden crash made me jerk the knife, slipping and slicing my finger. I looked up. Beatrice was standing there, glaring in the harsh sunlight, her Sunday hat shadowing her face, purse clenched like a weapon. She didn't knock. She didn't ask. She just walked in like she owned the place, like she owned me. Still playing in Greece, she sneered. I thought you'd learned shame by now. But clearly, you haven't. I set my knife down, wrapped my bleeding finger. Get out. This is a kitchen, not your parlor. She laughed, a shrill, echoing laugh. A business? Feeding people like livestock? I'm here to warn you. Marcus told me you're trying to extort him. Trying to get money because you can't accept he's moved on. I'm getting back what I paid, I said, stepping forward. I paid for his degree. I even covered your bills when you couldn't. Don't pretend you don't know where that money came from. Fury twisted her face. She jabbed a finger at me. You ungrateful little, my son is a man of God, and you're dragging his name through the mud. If you don't drop this, I'll expose you. I'll tell the church what you really are, a woman who trapped him, who abandoned her wifely duties. No one will ever buy from you again. She was close enough to smell. Perfume thick, suffocating. She thought she could intimidate me. She thought I was still that desperate girl. You won't speak a word, I said, calm. I grabbed the industrial sprayer. A blast of water hit her chest. Silk soaked instantly. She screamed and stumbled back, hat crooked. I said, get out. I leveled the sprayer again. Next one's for your face. She slipped, cursed, and ran. Clothes plastered to her body. I locked the door, returned to my prep. Finger bleeding, adrenaline roaring. For the first time in years, I felt free. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my soul. I thought the worst was behind me. I thought I'd already survived the storm. I was wrong. This time, the back door didn't slam, it creaked open like a threat. A man stepped inside, built like a linebacker stuffed into a cheap suit. He scanned my kitchen like he was pricing out what he'd soon be hauling away. You Mrs. Vance? He asked, voice gravel. I tightened my grip on the mop like a bat. I am. Who are you? He pulled out a folded document. I'm here to collect, ma'am. You're 90 days late on your title loan. If you can't pay today, I'm authorized to seize property. I laughed, thin, nervous. You've got the wrong person. I don't have any loans. I pay cash. My credit is perfect. He stepped closer and handed me the paper. It was a loan contract from Quick Cash and Title, a predatory lender notorious for interest rates that should be illegal. I flipped to the last page. My breath stopped. There it was. My name. My signature. A shaky imitation, but present. And beside it, Marcus's signature. Co-signer. I never signed this, I whispered. This is fraud. Not my problem, the man said. The contract says you owe $50,000. With interest and penalties, 62 as of this morning. 62,000? For what? I scanned the itemized list. A custom engagement ring. For carats. Platinum band. The room tilted. Marcus hadn't just cheated on me. He'd stolen my identity. He'd forged my name to take out a predatory loan. To buy Chloe a ring worth more than my entire business. I don't have the ring, I said, voice trembling with fury. Marcus does. Go after him. We tried, the man said. Hard man to get a hold of. But you're right here. And this equipment? He gestured around my kitchen, worth something. He pocketed his clipboard. You've got 24 hours, Mrs. Vance. Pay the 62 grand, or I take everything, your ovens, your fridges, your truck. I don't care who wears the ring. I care who signed the paper. He walked out, leaving the contract on stainless steel. Leaving a trap Marcus built, a noose with my name on it. If I fought the fraud, they'd investigate. If they investigated, they'd uncover everything, the millions hidden in my LLC. The 40+ properties. The empire I built quietly behind my food truck. Marcus had cornered me. And he knew it. Hours later, I stood in a glass-walled boardroom 45 floors above Atlanta, worlds away from the kitchen that smelled of rosemary and fear. James, my corporate attorney, tapped his leather-bound notebook. We have a problem, Nia. A $50 million problem. I paced across the plush carpet. My ex-husband forged my signature for diamonds. That's a felony, James. We send him to prison. James shook his head slowly. If we file criminal charges, the DA will open a full investigation. If we fight the loan in civil court, the judge will order complete financial disclosure. My stomach dropped. Either way, my hidden empire, my real power, would be exposed. And this wasn't just about diamonds anymore. It was about war. They would subpoena everything, my personal accounts, my business accounts, every shell company, every LLC. They would find the empire I built while Marcus was busy pretending to be a doctor. I stopped pacing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. If they found the assets before the divorce was finalized, Marcus would get half. $25 million. He'd become a millionaire simply by divorcing me. So what are you saying, James? I whispered. That I have to pay for the ring? The diamond sitting on the hand of the woman who destroyed my marriage? James didn't flinch. You have a choice. You can fight for the $200,000 in tuition. You can fight the $60,000 predatory loan. You can win the moral battle and send Marcus to prison. But the price of winning will be half your empire. He paused. Or you can lose. You can pay the debt. Drop the tuition demand. Let him think he broke you. And you walk away with your secret intact, still worth $50 million. I stared out the window at the city below. A construction crane loomed over the Onyx Tower, the building I was quietly negotiating to buy. I thought about Marcus. His arrogance. His greed. If he knew what I had, he'd never let me go. He'd dragged this out for years. I hated it. Every part of me screamed for justice. I wanted to burn his world to ash. But I am a businesswoman first. And this is a transaction. Pay the loan shark, I said coldly. Pay for the ring. Tell his attorney I'm dropping the tuition claim. Tell them I'm broke. Tell them I'm beaten. I'll sign whatever they sign. James nodded, almost reverently. It's the right move, Nia. You're sacrificing a pawn to save the queen. I turned back to the window. Let him have his little victory. Let him think he's won. Let him believe I'm nothing but a discarded lunch lady wife. Because when I come for him, it won't be for his money. It will be for his life. And he'll never see it coming, too busy underestimating me to notice the knife I've been sharpening behind my back. Underscore 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 underscore. The courtroom was sterile and silent, filled only with the scratch of pens. Marcus sat beside Julian, relaxed and smug, like he was attending his own victory parade. His arm draped over the chair, eyes scanning the room with ownership. I sat across from him. David at my side. This wasn't a divorce hearing, it was the final treaty of a war no one truly won. Or so Marcus believed. Judge Thornton adjusted her glasses, flipping through the documents. Mrs. Vance, you agree to withdraw all claims for educational reimbursement? Yes, Your Honor, I said, voice flat. And you agree to assume 50% of the marital debt, including the outstanding balance of the personal loan? Yes, Your Honor. Marcus leaned forward, that smug little smile crawling across his lips. He thought I was defeated. He thought I was weak. He had no idea. He had no idea I was simply clearing the board for a new game. Very well, the judge said, signing the final decree. Divorce granted. Court adjourned. As we stood to leave, Marcus drifted toward me. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. You were always a quitter, Nia, he whispered, dripping contempt. You never had what it takes to play in the big leagues. Enjoy your little food truck. Think of me every time you scrub that grease trap. He pulled back with a cruel smirk, waiting for me to crumble. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. Not a happy smile. A predator's smile. The kind you give when you know the trap is already set. Enjoy your victory, Marcus, I said softly. Savor it. Because it's the last one you'll ever get. His smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. Doubt flickered. Then he barked a laugh, shook his head, and strutted out with Julian trailing behind him like a loyal mutt. Pathetic. I watched him go, feeling a strange, powerful calm wash over me. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd stripped me of everything. But he was wrong. He took on a deadly burden. He took on the debt. He clung to a fantasy of a perfect marriage. But he never touched my mind. He never took my ambition. And he sure as hell never touched the $50 million sitting safely in my hidden accounts. I walked out into the bright Atlanta sun and inhaled deeply. The air tasted sweeter than it had in years. Phase 1 was complete. My chains were gone. Now the real work could begin. I pulled out my phone and called James. "It's done," I said. "Start Phase 2. Acquire the Onyx Tower." My phone buzzed non-stop, alerts from the old number I kept active for one reason: Intel. Exactly 365 days since I walked out of Golden Oak Country Club. To the world, Marcus Vance was now Atlanta's new medical prince. His Instagram was a shrine to excess. Wedding photos everywhere. The wedding of the century, a helicopter entrance, a 10-foot cake that cost more than my first house. Chloe draped in diamonds that sparkled like dying stars. Marcus looking at her with the same worship he usually reserved for mirrors. Their captions were nauseating. Power couple. Black excellence. Soulmates. Then came the DM from Tiffany. Of course she couldn't resist. My phone buzzed against the mahogany desk. I picked it up. A picture of Chloe's hand, weighed down by a diamond the size of a quail egg. Caption: "Enjoy the upgrade, Nia. Marcus finally has the queen he deserves. Hope you and your little lunchbox are doing okay. Don't worry, we toasted to your memory." I stared at the message. A year ago, it would have shattered me. It would have left me sobbing, wondering what I did wrong. Today? It looked pathetic. Tiffany thought she was mocking a broke woman struggling to pay rent. She had no idea she was poking a tiger. I leaned back in my leather chair, gazing out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. I wasn't in a kitchen anymore. I was on the 30th floor of a building I had just purchased through a shell corporation. And on the desk in front of me sat a contract. It wasn't a catering order. It was the acquisition contract for Fresh Route, the largest organic food supply network in the entire Southeast. While Marcus spent money to look rich, I spent money to own the city's infrastructure. Vance Culinary Logistics, my company, now supplied every major corporate cafeteria, 3 university hospital systems, and the very airport Marcus had flown out of for his honeymoon. I glanced at Tiffany's message one last time. Poor Tiffany. So proud of her proximity to borrowed luxury. She didn't know Chloe's diamond could have been paid for with the loan Marcus begged me to cover. She didn't know the champagne they toasted with was probably financed by a debt he'd never afford. They were drowning in liabilities to maintain an image. I was swimming in liquidity to build a legacy. I didn't respond. I didn't block her. I simply swiped the notification away and lifted my gold fountain pen. I signed the acquisition papers. $40 million, inked without a tremor. Let them have their wedding. Let them have their likes and hashtags. I had a city to feed and an empire to run. Lions do not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. Underscore 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 Onyx Tower. Floor 45. The view from the 45th floor was breathtaking. Atlanta sprawled beneath the floor-to-ceiling glass like a kingdom awaiting its sovereign. Marcus stood in the raw concrete space, arms stretched wide as if embracing the skyline. Not in scrubs today, a $3,000 suit and a hard hat perched on his head like a joke. But in his mind? He was a titan. "I want reception right here," Marcus commanded, pointing near the elevators. "And not just any desk. I want imported Calicut gold marble. A single slab. I want patients to know they've entered perfection the second the doors open." Henderson, the contractor, shifted uneasily, clipboard thick with change orders. "Dr. Vance, that's a $60,000 desk. And we haven't even framed the walls yet." Normally we wait until the lease is officially signed before ordering custom stone from Italy. Marcus's eyes flashed with irritation. He hated being questioned, especially by people he considered help. The lease is a formality, Henderson. The management company is drafting it right now. They know who I am. I'm the golden scalpel. They're practically begging me to anchor this building. If I wait for lawyers, we'll miss our opening date. I need this clinic operational in 6 weeks. Chloe already booked the magazine photographers. He pulled out a checkbook. Not a business account, his personal account, tied to a credit line he'd secured just yesterday. Interest rate, 25%. Loan shark rates. But loan sharks don't ask about debt-to-income ratios. Here, Marcus said, tearing out a check and slapping it against Henderson's chest. This covers the marble and lighting. Don't bore me with logistics. Just build it. Henderson stared at the check, then at Marcus. He shrugged. It's your money, doctor. But it wasn't his money. It was the secret that made his pulse race every night. He had leveraged every favor, every credit card, every loan he could find. He even did the unthinkable, forged his parents' signatures on a home equity line, using the house Beatrice had lived in for 30 years as collateral. A reckless gamble, a bet on his own hype, but in his mind, necessary. You have to spend money to make money. Once the clinic opened, the high-end clients would flood in. He'd pay off the loans, he'd pay for the house, and no one would know he was on the brink of bankruptcy. He pulled out his phone. I want white leather chairs for the waiting room, he barked. Yes, from Milan. Don't care about shipping. Just get them here. He caught his reflection in the glass. A winner. A genius. Not a man standing in a building he didn't own. He didn't own the spending. He hadn't risked his own money. Blinded by the glow of his ambition, he didn't see the trap snapping around his ankles. He was building a palace on quicksand, gilding the ceilings. Underscore 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 James pushed a black briefcase across the polished mahogany desk. It stopped precisely at my fingertips. Not a wedding menu. The Onyx Tower deed. Ink still wet on the acquisition papers. Vance Global Properties, my shell company, now owned the steel and glass masterpiece Marcus had poured his life into. James met my eyes. Deal's done, Nia. Previous owners were relieved to sell. They worried about tenant improvements without a signed lease. They thought Dr. Vance was a liability. I opened the folder. There it was. The building Marcus had gambled his entire future on. Millions poured into marble floors and gilded furniture for a space he didn't own, now claimed by the woman he discarded like trash. Owning the roof was just the beginning. I wanted the ground beneath his feet. Underscore 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 and the bonus package? I asked, flipping through the papers. James grinned like a shark. This morning we bought out the portfolio of private lenders. The high-risk loans Marcus used to finance the build, his personal lines of credit, even the mother's house lien. Banks called it toxic debt. They were happy to sell at a discount just to clear it from their books. I leaned back in my chair. So I own his clinic. I own his loans. I own his mother's house. You own him, James corrected. He just doesn't know it yet. He was currently yelling at the building manager, demanding early access to the penthouse for a magazine shoot. Thinking he was negotiating with some New York board. Unaware the board was right here, in the palm of my hand. I picked up my pen. Its weight felt good in my hand, steady, certain. Marcus was out there right now, probably choosing curtains for an office he would never pay for, not with the money he owed me. He was digging a hole, and I was the one selling him the shovel. Every dollar he spent was a dollar he'd eventually hand back to me. Every arrogant demand he made was another tug on the noose I held. Approval for transfer, I said, signing the final page. Tell the building manager to stall him. Say the board is reviewing his lease application because of irregularities. Let him sweat. Let him blame bureaucracy. I wanted him to finish the renovations, to perfect every detail. I wanted him standing in the middle of his masterpiece, feeling like a god, right before I turned off the lights. James closed the folder. It's done. You're the priority creditor. The landlord. The bank. I walked to the window overlooking the Atlanta skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably bragging to Chloe about his empire. Probably raising a glass to his own brilliance. He didn't know the champagne he was drinking was paid for with my money. He didn't know the floor beneath his feet belonged to me. He was a tenant in a house of cards. And I had just bought the wind. Underscore 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 the unfinished marble floor of the Onyx Tower lobby echoed as Marcus slammed his hand on the reception desk. He sweated through his shirt. 48 hours until opening, and his bank account was empty. He'd spent the last of his loan on Italian light fixtures and a custom sign, leaving nothing for food or drinks. The event planner quit after his credit card was declined for the third time. I can't debut a golden scalpel on a plastic grocery tray. Marcus shouted, panic cracking his voice. The mayor's coming. The hospital board is coming. I can't serve them cheese cubes on paper plates. I need champagne. I need appetizers. I need white glove servers. Beatrice sat in one of the velvet chairs, adjusting her hat like royalty preparing for a coronation. She didn't see a man moments from financial collapse. She saw a king mildly inconvenienced by peasants. Calm down, darling, she waved dismissively. You're a surgeon, not a party planner. Let mother handle logistics. We don't need those overpriced caterers anyway. Tiny portions. No soul. We need food for free, she added proudly. Marcus stared at her. Free? Mom, no one works for free in this city. Beatrice smiled, a slow, predatory curl. Not no one. There is someone who would pay for the privilege of being in your presence again. Someone sitting in her sad little apartment right now, regretting the day she let you go. Marcus frowned. Who are you talking about? Nia, she said, like dropping a secret weapon. Marcus scoffed. She hates me, Mom. Last time I saw her, she looked at me like something she scraped off her shoes. She's not catering my opening. She's hurt, Beatrice corrected, full of delusional confidence. A woman only acts like that when she's wounded. Deep down, she's still the girl who worked 3 jobs to get you through school. She adored you. Devotion like that doesn't disappear. She sees your success on Instagram. She sees you with Chloe. She's eating her heart out. If you give her one chance to be useful to you again, she'll leap at it. But Chloe, Marcus began, glancing toward the back office where his wife was yelling at a florist. Chloe doesn't need to know, Beatrice said smoothly, rising to her feet. Not until the food arrives. Beatrice lifted her chin like a queen about to deliver mercy. Besides, this is business, she declared. Nia runs the top catering company in Atlanta now. I heard she's doing the governor's events. Imagine the prestige of her serving your guests. And the best part? She'll do it just to be near you. She'll think it's reconciliation. She'll think you're tossing her a crumb. Marcus ran a hand through his fresh haircut, ego swelling under his mother's toxic logic. You really think she still wants me? Beatrice gave a soft, patronizing laugh. Oh, sweetheart. Look at you. You're the golden scalpel. What woman wouldn't want you? She's probably waiting by the phone right now, praying for a miracle. Let's give her one. She held out her hand. Give me my phone. I'm about to save this party and remind that girl of her place. My phone buzzed on my executive desk. Caller ID, Beatrice Vance. A name I hadn't seen in a year. I let it ring a moment. I was sitting in the penthouse office of Vance Holdings, surrounded by the quiet hum of billion-dollar operations. Beatrice thought she was calling some grease-stained girl in a grimy kitchen. She had no idea she was calling the woman who owned the mortgage on her house. I hit speaker. Hello, Beatrice. Nia, this is Mother Beatrice. I hope you're sitting down. I have news that will change your life. I leaned back. Do tell. Tomorrow, Marcus opens the Golden Scalpel Onyx Tower, the most prestigious clinic in the state. I'm aware, I said. Well, she continued in her syrupy fake church lady voice, Marcus knows you're struggling. He knows your little catering business could use some help. So, out of the kindness of his heart, he's willing to let you cater the grand opening. My eyebrow lifted. He wants to hire me? Oh, hire is such a strong word, she giggled. Think of it as exposure. You'll serve Atlanta's elite. And if you behave, if you stay quiet and keep the food warm, Marcus might even mention your name to a few guests. He's giving you the chance to be part of his success again. A chance to redeem yourself for abandoning him. The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to work for free. They wanted me to serve the woman who stole my husband and the man who stole my money. And they thought they were doing me a favor. So, I said slowly, a smile curving, you want me there tomorrow. You want me serving the guests. We expect your very best, Beatrice snapped. No mistakes. No cheap ingredients. And we're something decent, we don't want you looking like a rag picker in front of the mayor. Be at the service entrance at 4. Don't be late. I'll be there, I promised. My voice dropped an octave. And I'll bring exactly what Marcus deserves. Good. See that you do. Click. The line went dead. I set the phone down and turned toward the window. Below me, city lights flickered awake. I pressed the intercom. Sarah, cancel my meetings tomorrow. Yes, Mrs. Vance. Should I schedule kitchen staff for a catering event? No, I stood, walking to the closet where my white custom power suit waited. We won't be cooking. We're attending the party. Call the mayor. Call the zoning commissioner. And tell my driver to ready the Bentley. We're going to a celebration. I ran a hand over the suit's fabric. Beatrice wanted me to serve. And I would. I'd serve an eviction notice. I'd serve a lawsuit. And I'd serve a cold plate of reality they wouldn't be able to swallow. The time for silence was over. The donkey was dead. The queen had arrived to claim her kingdom. The Onyx Tower lobby had been transformed into a palace of ego. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, casting golden light over Atlanta's elite. White-jacketed servers glided through the crowd, carrying trays of caviar and vintage champagne. The air reeked of expensive perfume and unchecked ambition. At the center of it all stood Marcus and Chloe, holding court like royalty. Marcus, tailored navy tuxedo clinging like a second skin, beamed as he shook the mayor's hand. Chloe clutched his arm, draped in silk and diamonds that I was still paying interest on. They looked flawless. Untouchable. Beatrice conducted her own private audience by the marble fountain, wearing a hat so large it might have required a zip code of its own. Look what God has made, she proclaimed, her voice rising over the string quartet. Marcus built this from nothing. No help. No handouts. Just faith and hard work. The church ladies nodded, murmuring blessings, completely unaware that this entire facility had been funded by the daughter-in-law Beatrice had dismissed as disposable. Nearby, Tiffany sipped champagne and checked her watch with exaggerated annoyance. She leaned to a cluster of doctors' wives, her voice pitched for maximum attention. "It's so sad about Marcus's ex," she said, shaking her head with fake sympathy. "We tried to include her. We really did. Beatrice even offered her a catering gig tonight so she could get back on her feet. Imagine being grateful for charity while living in a food truck." Now, of course, Nia was late. Typical. Unreliable. A former wife shaking her head. So sad. Some people just can't handle proximity to success. Exactly, Tiffany sneered, laughing cruelly. "I bet she's too embarrassed to show her face. Imagine serving your ex's new wife. There's a certain lack of dignity." But Nia had never been particularly dignified. She always felt more at home in an apron than a gown. Marcus looped his arm around Chloe's waist and kissed Tiffany on the cheek. "Don't worry about Nia," he said loud enough for all to hear. "If she doesn't show, we'll just order pizza. Probably tastes better anyway. She's just for entertainment." The group laughed, loud and careless. A cold, ruthless sound echoed up to the vaulted ceiling. They raised their glasses to Marcus. To the future. To the absence of the woman they thought they had destroyed. They had no idea she wasn't late. She was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to ruin their party. They celebrated in a building already on fire, too arrogant to smell the smoke. The valet lot filled with Teslas and Mercedes, but the noise of the party instantly stilled as the motorcade arrived. This was no mere car. It was a procession. 3 blacked-out Bentleys pulled to the curb with the silent authority of a presidential visit. The lead S-Class windows were so dark they looked like obsidian. The frozen staff had no idea who was commanding the entrance. The rear door of the first Bentley opened, and the mayor of Atlanta stepped out. He adjusted his tie and reached back to help the remaining passengers inside. A hush rippled across the entrance. Why was the mayor helping someone out of the car? Then I stepped out. No apron. No hairnet. I was wrapped in a custom white Alexander McQueen power suit sharp enough to slice glass. My bob was sleek, my makeup flawless, my heels hitting the pavement like a judge's gavel. I wore oversized sunglasses even though the sun had long set. Tonight, I wasn't Nia the caterer. I was Mrs. Vance. The owner. Behind me, the other Bentleys opened, James, my corporate attorney, then the bank president, then 2 senior partners from the top litigation firm in the city. We walked as a coordinated power unit, a silent declaration. The real royalty had arrived. At the doors, Kevin, the same security guard who once threatened to tow my food truck, stepped forward. "Ma'am, this is a private event. Only the guest list. Unless you're staff, the service entrance is in the back." Before he could finish, Mr. Sterling, the building manager, burst out, pale as chalk. He shoved Kevin aside. "You idiot, step down." He bowed so fast he nearly folded in half. "Mrs. Vance. Welcome to Onyx Tower. We weren't expecting your inspection until tomorrow." I slid my sunglasses down just enough to meet Kevin's eyes. "Plans changed," I said, voice cool and corporate. "I decided to check on my investment tonight. And make sure my driver has a reserved spot. Right in front. I don't like walking far." "Yes, ma'am." Immediately, ma'am. The glass doors slid open as if the building itself recognized its true owner. String music drifted out. I paused just long enough to look at my reflection. I looked like money. I looked like power. I looked like Marcus's greatest nightmare. "Ready?" James whispered. I smiled, sharp, merciless. Showtime. The double doors opened. The string quartet faltered. Then stopped entirely. Silence crashed through the ballroom as every head turned. I walked down the marble floor, each heel click a countdown. Marcus was mid-speech when he saw me. His smile died. His eyes widened. Confusion flickered, then rage took over. He shoved his champagne at a passing waiter and stormed toward me, jaw clenched, posture like a father about to scold a disobedient child. "What the hell are you doing here?" he roared, voice booming under the vaulted ceiling. I told Beatrice, caterers use the service entrance. You don't walk through the front door of my building. He stopped inches from my face, breathing hard. And that was the moment he realized, this wasn't his building. It was mine. He raked his gaze over me, lingering on my white suit with open contempt. What is this outfit supposed to be? Did you rent it to play pretend? You look ridiculous. You're the lunch girl, Nia. You cook chicken. You don't belong here. Get out, before I have you thrown out. He snapped his fingers at Kevin, the terrified security guard by the door. Kevin. Remove this woman. She's trespassing. She's disturbing my guests. Kevin didn't move. His eyes flicked from Marcus, to me, to the floor. Marcus's voice cracked into a shout. I said get her out. A new voice cut through the room, low, commanding. I suggest you lower your voice, Dr. Vance. The mayor stepped up beside me. Marcus blinked rapidly, trying to process what he was seeing. Mr. Mayor, he stammered, his aggression evaporating into confusion. I'm sorry. This woman is my ex-wife. She's unstable. Just a caterer trying to ruin my night. I was only removing her. The mayor shook his head slowly, his expression ice cold. You're mistaken, doctor. You're not removing anyone. In fact, you are the one who's out of place. Marcus gave a nervous laugh. I don't understand. She's just Nia. She's nobody. The mayor placed a steady hand on my shoulder. She is not nobody. This is Mrs. Nia Vance, chairwoman of Vance Holdings, my largest re-election sponsor, and more importantly, Dr. Vance, she owns this building. Silence crashed over the room. Even the hum of the AC seemed loud. Marcus stared at me, mouth open, no sound coming out. He looked at the mayor. At James. At the building manager, who gave a solemn nod. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. She sells sandwiches. She owns the Onyx Tower you renovated, the mayor replied calmly. She owns the debt you used to fund it. She is your landlord, Marcus, and I believe she has something to say to her tenant. I stepped forward, closing the space between us. Slowly, deliberately, I removed my sunglasses, letting him see the cold fire in my eyes. Hello, Marcus. My voice was soft. Deadly. I hope you like this suit. I bought it using the interest from your loan payments. Now get off my floor. He looked like a man who'd been shot but hadn't realized it yet, gray, slack-jawed, frozen. I didn't give him time to recover. I brushed past him, my shoulder striking his arm with intentional force, and stepped onto the podium he'd used to stage his arrogance. I tapped the microphone. The echo cracked through the hall like a gunshot. You have expensive tastes, Marcus, I said, my voice amplified and crystal clear. You spent $2 million renovating this lobby. Such a shame, I despise it. It looks cheap. Like new money trying far too hard. And as the owner of the Onyx Tower, I have exacting standards. You can't do this, he choked out. I have a lease. I have a contract. I spent millions. I lifted the blue folder James had placed on the podium. I opened it slowly, savoring the crisp crackle of paper in the expectant silence. In fact, you don't have a lease, I said. You have an application. The one you submitted to the previous management company, the one that was never approved because you were too busy playing architect to wait for legal clearance. You poured concrete without a signature, Marcus. Rookie mistake. I lifted the blue file. Then I tore it clean in half. The rip echoed like a gunshot. Application denied. Marcus lunged. Kevin stepped in instantly, palm resting on his taser. You can't do this. Marcus spat, flecks of saliva flying. This is my lobby. My fixtures. My $2 million glued to these walls, correct, I said, my voice glacial. And under the standard commercial application terms you signed, any unauthorized improvements become the landlord's property upon denial. I leaned in. You don't own this marble, Marcus. I do. You paid for my renovation. And frankly, I'm tearing it all down. It's as tacky as you are. His face drained to corpse white as the realization hit. He hadn't just lost the space, he'd lost the money. The loan shark. The mortgage on his mother's house. All of it poured into a building he was now being evicted from. You have 24 hours, I said, checking my diamond watch. By this time tomorrow, I want every personal item out of my building. Anything left gets trashed. And if you remove fixtures or damage a wall, I'll have you arrested for property destruction. Kevin straightened. Yes, Mrs. Vance. Escorting Mr. Vance to the curb. He is trespassing. I turned away, dismissing him as easily as he'd dismissed me 5 years ago. Behind me came the sound of a man breaking apart, a strangled gasp, the beginning of panic. He finally understood. The floor hadn't collapsed beneath him. I had dismantled it, plank by plank. And now he was falling into the abyss I'd spent years digging for him. Then, thud. Beatrice hit the floor. Heavy. Final. Like a wet sandbag dropped from a height. The women around her fluttered in panic, fans beating the air like frantic moth wings. Shouts for water. Someone screaming for a doctor. I didn't move. I stood on the podium like a general watching the battlefield from a hilltop. This was collateral damage, unfortunate, but inevitable. Beatrice had weaponized her home for years, turned it into a fortress to shut me out and a stage to humiliate me. Now it was just another asset on the liquidation board. Marcus stared at his mother, hands trembling violently at his sides. He didn't kneel. He was too numb, too stunned by the scale of his own failure. He looked up at Mr. Sterling, pleading. You can't do this, he choked. That's my mother's house. She's lived there 30 years. It's all she has. Mr. Sterling snapped the red folder shut. Then you shouldn't have used it as collateral. Dr. Vance, you signed the papers. You notarized the deed of trust. You knew the risks. The bank is not a charity, we want our money. Since you buried 5 million of it into a building you don't own, we'll take the only thing left worth a single cent. Marcus turned to me, broken. Nia, please. Stop him. You own the debt now, don't you? Marcus pleaded. You bought the portfolio. You can stop the foreclosure. Do it for my mother. She's old. She won't survive the streets. I looked at him, the man who'd watched me work double shifts while he slept with another woman. The man who'd called me simple. Do it for your mother, I echoed, letting the words sour on my tongue. His mother, the woman who told me I smelled like grease. The woman who called me a mule. The woman who tried to trick me into catering this event for free so he could save face. I stepped down from the podium, my heels clicking against the marble like a countdown. I stopped inches from him. Beatrice isn't my family, Marcus. She made that very clear. She's your mother, and she raised you into exactly what you are, a thief, a liar, and a leech. I tilted my head. How poetic that she's now paying for the monster she created. I turned to Mr. Sterling. Proceed with the seizure. I want the house empty in 24 hours. If they leave so much as a spoon behind, they'll be charged a disposal fee. Beatrice groaned on the floor, eyes wide and glassy. She looked up at me, vision swimming. Nia, help me, she whispered. I looked down at her. I am helping you, Beatrice. I'm teaching you the lesson you forgot to teach your son. You can't spend what you didn't earn, and you can't keep what you never valued. I signaled the security team. Clear the floor. The party is over. The bank is closed, and trash goes to the curb. 2 guards hauled Beatrice up. She released a high, desperate sound as they dragged her toward the doors. Marcus stumbled after them like a drunk, his empire collapsing around him. Guests stared in horrified silence, clutching pearls and handbags as though failure might be contagious. I watched them go. The first domino had fallen. Chloe stepped over her unconscious mother-in-law, not to help her, but to march toward me. Her face twisted so hard it wrinkled the effects of her high-end Botox. She jabbed a manicured finger into my chest, diamonds I'd paid for glittering under the lights. "You think you can walk in here and destroy my husband?" she shrieked. "You're nothing. Street trash. My father is chief of staff at Atlanta General. He sits on the medical board. One call from him and you'll be buried in lawsuits until you never see sunlight again." I regarded her with the weary patience reserved for exceptionally loud toddlers. She still believed the old rules applied. She still thought pedigree could protect her. "Your father," I said, checking my watch. "You may want to check the news, Chloe. The 6 o'clock broadcast should be starting now." I gestured to the massive flat screen behind the reception desk, usually looping Marcus's surgical triumphs. Tonight, it played CNN. A blood-red breaking news banner screamed across the bottom, "Atlanta General Chief of Staff arrested for embezzling millions." Chloe's eyes bulged as she watched her father being led out of his Buckhead mansion in handcuffs. What did you do?" she whispered, face bleaching to bone white. "I reviewed the books," I said simply. "When Vance Holdings acquired the hospital network last week, we found some interesting discrepancies. Your father funneled money into offshore accounts for a decade." I handed the ledgers to the FBI. I leaned closer. "He won't be saving you, Chloe. He's going to prison. And since his assets are frozen during the investigation, I doubt he can even bail you out when you're arrested for driving the leased car under my company's name." Chloe let out a strangled sound and collapsed into a velvet chair like a marionette whose strings had been cut. Then there was Tiffany. Poor, calculating Tiffany. She'd seen everything, her eyes darting between Marcus, Chloe, and me like a trapped animal. When my gaze landed on her, she tried to smile. It came out twisted with fear and desperation. "Nia," she stammered. "I always told Marcus he was making a mistake. You know that, right? I always respected your hustle." "We're sisters," Tiffany breathed. I laughed, an actual laugh, sharp with disbelief. "Sisters. This woman once called me the help." She laughed when Marcus tried to steal my livelihood to chauffeur her dripping wet designer dogs. I reached into my bag and pulled out a set of keys. Metal clinked through the silent hall. "Speaking of dogs, I have a gift for you." I tossed the keys. She caught them by reflex, looking down at the Ford logo in confusion. "My old delivery truck," I said. "The one Marcus wanted so desperately. It's parked in the back. It's yours, Tiffany. I'm giving it to you." Her face lit with hope. "Really? Really?" I smiled coldly. "Because Marcus has 24 hours to clear out, and he can't afford movers. You'll need a big truck to haul all your trash to the curb. Consider it my contribution to the family business." Her smile collapsed. She realized she hadn't received a gift. She'd been assigned a job. And for the first time in her life, she'd have to work for a living. Marcus tried to stand, using the reception desk for support. His tux was ruined. His face streaked with tears and snot. And yet, that look was still in his eyes. The look that said he believed he was better than everyone in the room. He straightened his tie, trying to salvage a shred of dignity from the wreckage. "You can take the building, Nia," he rasped. "You can take the house. You can even take the money. But you can't take my talent. I'm the golden scalpel. My hands are insured for millions. I'll rebuild. I'll go to another hospital. Another city. I'll be a star again. Because I'm a doctor and you're just a bitter woman with a checkbook." I shook my head slowly, almost impressed by the depth of his delusion. "You're right, Marcus," I said, my voice echoing through the hall. "I can't take your talent, because you never had any." I reached into my white suit and pulled out a thin folder. Not a contract. Not a bank statement. A copy of an ethics report from 5 years ago. His pupils shrank. "Remember the third time you took your board exams?" I asked as I approached. "When you were desperate, because one more failure meant they'd throw you out of the program?" "Shut up, Nia," he snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about." "You came home crying," I continued. You told me there was a fix, but it would cost $10,000. A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus froze. I paid that $10,000, I said. In cash. In a brown paper bag, just like you asked. He shook his head violently. Stop, you said it was for a tutor. But we both know it went to Proctor Jenkins, who made sure your answer sheet was corrected before it was scanned. A gasp tore through the hall, sharp, collective, devastating. This wasn't gossip. This was a career-ending, license-killing accusation. Marcus lunged at me, screaming, liar. Security grabbed him before he could reach me. I didn't flinch. I'm not lying, I said calmly. And neither is Mr. Jenkins. I let the silence sharpen before I delivered the kill shot. I stopped paying his hush money last month, Marcus. The funny thing about blackmailers? When the checks stop, they start talking. I held up the report. This morning, he sent a full confession to the Georgia Medical Board, along with the bank records proving I withdrew the cash. I turned back to the crowd until my gaze found a distinguished older man standing near the rear. His expression was carved from stone. Dr. Robinson, I said. I believe you have something to add. The room parted as Dr. Robinson, chairman of the State Medical Board, stepped forward. He looked at Marcus the way a disappointed father looks at a son who squandered every chance he was given. Marcus Vance, he said, voice heavy. Based on the evidence presented, evidence of academic fraud and bribery during your board certification, the committee has called an emergency session. Effective immediately, your medical license in the state of Georgia is suspended pending permanent revocation. You are to cease all patient care at once. No, Marcus collapsed to his knees. You can't, I'm a surgeon. I save lives. You're a fraud, Dr. Robinson replied, already turning away. And you will never hold a scalpel again. I stood beside Marcus as the last shard of his identity shattered. He wasn't a doctor. Not anymore. Just a man in a ruined tuxedo, kneeling on a floor he paid to install but never owned, weeping over a life he never truly earned. The golden scalpel had finally rusted, and I was the one who scraped off the paint. Marcus broke. The arrogant peacock from an hour earlier was gone, replaced by something desperate and trembling. His hands shook as he grabbed the hem of my white pants, tears streaking through the sweat on his face. Nia, please, he choked. We can fix this. I was under pressure, residency, expectations, I made mistakes, but I never stopped loving you. You're my wife. You're the only one who ever understood me. We can start over. With your business and my talent, we could own this city. I stared down at him, the man who once wiped his hands after touching my baking because he didn't want crumbs on his skin. The man who called me simple. I stepped back, pulling my pant leg out of his grasp. Get up, Marcus, I said, my voice flat. You're embarrassing yourself. And you're dirtying my floor. He looked up at me with wide, wet eyes. But I love you, Nia. Doesn't that mean anything? I laughed. Soft. Deadly. In the silence of the hallway, it sounded like a gunshot. You don't love me, Marcus. You never did. You loved my usefulness. You loved that I paid your bills. That I made you look good. And now? Now you love my money. I leaned in. But here's the problem, my money doesn't love you back. It thinks you're bad for business. I nodded to Kevin. The security guard stepped forward, jaw tight. Remove him, I said. And make sure he doesn't walk out with the stapler. It belongs to the building. He doesn't. Nia. No. Marcus screamed as Kevin and another guard hauled him upright. His voice cracked, desperate. Nia. Chloe didn't run to him. Not when the cuffs came off. Not even now. Beatrice sobbed quietly by the fountain. And Marcus? Marcus was alone. I turned my back on him for the last time. I walked toward the glass doors, Marcus's pleading fading behind me, replaced by the sharp, steady click of my heels against marble. I pushed through the doorway and stepped into the cool night air. Atlanta's humidity had finally broken, leaving the world crisp, clean, almost new. My driver opened the door of the Bentley. I slid into the cedar-scented leather interior, soft, warm, expensive. The door shut with a solid thunk, sealing out the noise, the chaos, and the ghosts of who I used to be. Silence. Peace. Victory. I rested my head back, letting the tension bleed off my shoulders. My phone buzzed. I lifted it, expecting another frantic plea from a relative or a question from my attorney. Instead, it was a notification, my CFO confirming that Vance Holdings' quarterly net profit was up 200%. The hospital network acquisition was complete. Congratulations, Madam Chairwoman. A slow smile spread across my face. Not the smile of a woman underestimated. Not the smile of a victim. The smile of someone who won. My driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Where to, Mrs. Vance?" "Forward," I said, eyes on the city lights, my city now. "Just drive forward. I have an empire to run." This story reminds us of a simple truth. Your value is never defined by those too small to recognize it. Nia's journey shows that loyalty without reciprocity is exploitation, and begging for love from people who treat you like a stepping stone is spiritual bankruptcy. When you're pushed out, don't claw for a place at a table that never respected you. Build your own. Or better, buy the building. Power lives in strategic silence, financial independence, and the unshakable truth that the best revenge is undeniable success.